March 12, 2014 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting is hereby called to order. We do have a quorum present. We're missing Mr. Goff, Mr. Haney, Mr. Gaspar, and of course, our beloved Chairman Lee is still out absent, ill, and we do wish him a speedy recovery. I'll entertain a motion of the minutes from February 12th.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Thank you. Reports. No report from the chair. Commissioners, anyone? Thank you. Staff reports. Director.
First, I will extend greetings from our chairman. Spoke to him this afternoon. He's hoping to be released in the next day or two, but apparently that hope has been ongoing for a while. He says he's doing well and he wants to get back into the swing of things and come back and visit with y'all, so he's planning on being here at the April meeting.
Okay.
Then for less fun items, it's about time for us to look at impact fees again and observe whether or not there have been any changes in the conditions or anything that requires any changes on our impact fees that we have. And the question that I would pose is, do y'all want it in paper copy again, or do you have enough copies of it already? Because there haven't been any changes. Y'all get it once every 6 months.
Plenty of copies.
Yes.
If you're good,
I think the only person, I don't have, he wouldn't have a copy of it.
we'll get you a copy of it in the next packet.
May I have an emailed copy?
Please.
If at all possible.
We can do that.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else, sir?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Planning rep. No. Thanks. Public Works?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Well, I'd just like to mention that City Council has called for a bond election in May. They decided on an amount of $40 million, which is set to avoid a future tax rate increase for the debt service. We've started an education presentation that we will continue to do over the next couple of months. We did our first HOA meeting this Monday, and staff has also been meeting with the media as well. We have a couple open houses planned to invite the public in to learn more about the projects that are going to be on the bond election, and the first one will be March 25th. That'll be here at the community center. I believe that'll start at 6:30. And then the second one will be April 14th over in the HEB community room. And that too should start around 6:30.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
All right. Thank you.
How long before they're gonna finish that intersection at Cartwright and 2234?
That'll probably be a while. That intersection, the Cartwright intersection, is involved in all three phases of the project, which is expected to go through November.
Any other questions?
So it's gonna be a mess for a while then.
Probably.
Okay.
The mess is saying it.
Well, I could offer maybe a little more. If you're speaking maybe of the perhaps the left turn from Cartwright northbound onto Texas Parkway, maybe.
No, I haven't noticed.
That
Yeah, I got to sit through it 3 times, so I did notice it a little while.
I'd have to go and reference the traffic control plan, but the first phase involves finishing the added pavement on the north side of the intersection. And once that's finished, they should be able to open up that dual left again. But I can go back and double check that. So if that's in the first phase, that means we should only have a month or two before they're ready for that.
A glimmer of hope then, right?
All right. As this is an opportunity for the public to address the Planning and Zoning Commission, that time is now. It's an opportunity for the public to address us on items or concerns that are not on the agenda, but we do ask that your public comments be held to 3 minutes per individual and 5 minutes per subject. Is there anyone? Thank you. Consent agenda. Plats. Consider approval of a preliminary plat for Lost Creek at Riverstone, Section 2. And consider approval of a preliminary plat for Pecan Estates at Anderson Springs, Section 3.
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
I second
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain. That took care of 6A, so we'll move to 6B. Avalon at Sienna. Consider approval of a conceptual plan for Avalon at Sienna, Section 1. Consider approval of a preliminary plat for Avalon at Sienna, Section 1 as well.
Yes, the Avalon and Sienna Section 1 concept plan covers 82.10 acres of land. And within that, they are planning 128 lots with 7 reserves and 5 blocks. It is located west of Sienna Parkway and north of the Waterbrook West subdivision. There are some outstanding staff comments that need to be addressed, but nothing major that staff feels can't be resolved. We're happy to answer any questions the commission may have. We do recommend conditional approval of the applicant's submittal.
Make a motion, we grant conditional approval.
Is there a second?
it.
Thank you. All in favor? Show of right hand. Opposed? Thank you. And as this was that you made your motion for the conceptual plan and to accept the preliminary plat all in one?
Yeah, I'll amend my
Will you-
motion to include items 1 and 2 under B.
Thank you. We'll move now to 6C, Sienna Village of Destrehan. Consider approval of a conceptual plan for Sienna Village of Destrehan, Sections 1 through 9. We'll take that one first.
Okay. You must have questions.
Not really.
Well, this is Sienna South, the area known to us as Sienna South. The 8th Amendment of the Sienna Development, Joint Development Agreement was, came before the commission mid-last year, approved by City Council last year. So this is the continuation down into Sienna, continuation of Sienna Parkway. The concept is for the first 9 sections, sections 1 through 9, with Sienna Parkway dissecting those sections on either side. The concept is for approximately 499 lots and includes a little over 200 acres. Staff's comments are noted in the report. We do recommend conditional approval based on those comments, and if you all have any questions for us, we can answer those as well.
Okay. Gentlemen, do you have any questions?
Make a motion, we grant conditional approval.
Thank you. Second,
I
please.
second.
All in favor? None opposed? Thank you. Jennifer, the only reason why I wanted to take them separately, because it kind of confused me a little bit, consider approval of preliminary plat for Sienna Village of Destrehan, Sections 1 through 4.
Yeah, it's a little different from what
Yeah,
we
just a
normally
little
see.
bit,
Just
so-
a little. And actually, I'm gonna leave the concept because as opposed to trying to stick up the match sheets for the preliminary,
Okay?
and just to give an overall view. But you're used to seeing preliminary plats one section at a time. This is a preliminary that encompasses 4 sections. And so that is also the consideration with the number of staff comments in the report is reflected for each of those sections. But it's the first 4 sections of the same concept that you just approved. Are there any specific questions about the report or about the layout or anything about the plat itself?
Gentlemen?
So they're ready to go on these 4 sections right now, that's the,
That would be the group in the back.
I kind of figured.
The land planners and engineers, they are ready to go. They're ready to go, and so
I make
we
a
should
motion
see
that
the
we-
activity coming through.
grant conditional approval of this plat.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Mr. Goff. All in favor? Abstains, noes, motion passes. All right. Zoning map amendments, 7A. This is a public hearing to receive comments for or against a request by Craig Garcia, AIA, on behalf of Darrell Mayo to create a planned development district for an approximate .4744 acre tract to facilitate the development of a new building for an insurance company and to allow for uses permitted within an LC3 retail district, and to the extent such rezoning deviates from the future land use and character maps of the comprehensive plan, to provide for an amendment therefrom. The subject site is located north of 3rd Street, east of 2nd Parkway, south of Highway 90, and west of Orchard Street.
Yes, the applicants are here tonight to request creating a planned development district on top of a tract of land that is currently zoned LC3 Retail District in order to facilitate the development of an office building that would be utilized for insurance sales. The current zoning allows for the use. It is because of some of the constraints of that site that the planned development district is being requested. Essentially, the site was formerly a gas station that's been closed for a significant period of time. I'm not exactly sure the date on that closure, but it's been probably 20-plus years. Yes, before my time. And so at this point, all that remains, all the structures are gone, but there still is a concrete slab that remains out there. We don't know what the condition of that concrete slab is, so it may or may not meet city standards currently. But the applicant does have a current business that he operates on Texas Parkway, and he is looking to relocate his business from there to this new location. There are 6 different deviations that the applicant's requesting in order to develop the property. The first one is to request a rear yard of not less than 7 feet where adjacent to the current Family Medicine in Missouri City. There was actually, a few years ago, a planned development district ordinance created for that tract that granted a 7-foot rear yard there as well. So essentially, they're basically requesting what Dr. Slaughter and what that area had done. Staff is recommending to approve the applicant's request of that 7-foot there, keeping in mind that, you know, if there's AC equipment and things like that, it may have to shift slightly in order to accommodate that, but at a minimum, that's what we would be looking for. The next deviation they're asking for is shrubs to be spaced at more than 30 inches apart within the buffer yard adjacent to Texas Parkway. It is maybe not the easiest thing to say here, and really it's just a very small distancing of the shrubs. There's just a few slight gaps going through there, which actually could be, you know, a function of the printer. We would recommend, though, that line be continued along the whole way of the perimeter of the site to increase the visual appearance of it. And just there's adequate room. There's really no reason that would need to not happen. So staff recommends disapproving that request. The third is to reduce a segment of the buffer yard along Highway 90A to 2 feet in depth. As you can see here, there's actually, in the aerial here, an existing driveway right here. Because of where that driveway currently is located and the front property line, there is 2 feet. So there has been a request by staff for the applicants to slide that down. So it may be that we get more than 2 feet in buffer yard area there. But at this time, with the current existing driveway, that's how the site currently is today. And we'll be working with the applicants to figure out exactly how, you know, they're going to work on that. But we would recommend approving that request, so long as they do maintain sufficient area within that 2 feet to get the shrubs and other trees they may need in there. The fourth request is to allow for a single row of shrubs to be utilized for screening of parking areas adjacent to properties. We would recommend disapproving that and request that they have the standard double row of shrubs where utilized for screening of parking area purposes. At this time, they're just showing a single row of shrubs along the entire perimeter and not a double row where there would actually be parking. So, and usually you see the double row of parking because most facilities have most of their parking to the front of the structure instead of just a single row. The fifth is to request perimeter of parking areas to be without canopy trees where adjacent to family medicine. It's hard to see on here, but there is actually an area where they have parking, which will be adjacent to the building. There's no room for trees to go in there based on the current location of the family medicine building and where they have those parking spaces located. And so we would say that we recommend approving that request of not allowing the canopy trees to be at the perimeter, at least along the area where it's adjacent to Family Medicine Missouri City. And the sixth is to allow for parking space to be further than 40 feet from a planting island or diamond. It's really only where adjacent to Texas Parkway. They have actually a half diamond they're showing here on this side, which would cover those parking spaces, but they would need something like that along Texas Parkway in order to meet our current standards. Staff recommends that that request be disapproved and that they be required to place a planting island or diamond in the proximity of those parking spaces. The application does comply with the comprehensive plan and the land use plan, and it does further our goals towards those. And we do recommend that you all forward this to City Council with a positive recommendation.
Great.
That was a mouthful.
Very well, very well.
So I like the,
I did.
putting the summary of the deviations at the beginning.
I tried to make it a little bit easier. When we have a
Although,
conflict, it
my
helps.
first reaction was I would have liked to seen the recommendations with it. But I mean, I figured they were in the report and there would be more information in the report, but that was a good summary. But this sucker was an eye test. I still can't really read it,
Looking
so.
at the digital file helped quite a bit.
Yeah.
In PDF format where you can zoom in really close.
And so, I guess all of these, the majority of these deviations have to do with the fact that they want a certain square footage building, and they have a certain requirement for the number of parking spaces that force them to have to squeeze all the
Right,
buffers
and
out.
honestly, just because of, because of where those setbacks are, they would be required 25 feet off the rear with an LC3 and 25 off the front, and so it gets to be real tight. Then you've got to factor in where the landscaping is going to go and all that, so we feel that it's a piece of property that should be developed. It's a very funny little piece out there.
And so
It's
the
just kind
number,
of leftovers.
the number of parking spaces is calculated based on the square footage of the building, so are
Yes.
they right at, or are they?
Yes, as far as the parking spaces go, based on that use of an insurance or an office building like that, they're within those goals. We have no issue there.
Has the applicant expressed that he has any concerns about not following the requirements that you've set forth?
Would you all like
so
to
far?
step to the podium and address that?
You can come on up.
While the applicant's coming up, I noticed when staff was reviewing this that if staff does request and commission and council goes along that the driveway needs to move further from Highway 90, because it is incredibly close, and as you think about it, I'm not too sure too many people can make that turn. If it moves down, that's going to affect parking where they have it planned next to Dr. Slaughter's property. Some of those parking spaces may need to move into what would normally be the landscape area, but it would have been the driveway. With that reconfiguration, we need to be alert to that so that if that happens, they have the latitude to move the parking spaces they need back up toward Highway 90. But that's why we're pretty strict
So,
on the screening
I guess I'm
hedges.
not- what you're talking about is the proposed parking, or, there's already a driveway into the lot. It's
yes.
this one right up here?
Yes.
That you're talking about?
Right.
That may
Yes.
have to move further up the street?
Yes.
Up Orchard?
Yes.
About to
further
where the
south.
tree is.
Right.
Okay.
Is the plan view we're seeing from Gage Design show the driveway in its existing
Yes,
position?
that is the location of the existing.
So it's like,
Kind of hard to tell in there.
the
It's right
ER,
there.
it's
But in the
like
thing,
not
it's
even
right
the
there,
ER's
it may
not
have
even
to
finished,
move
it's turning.
It's,
over
yeah,
here.
it's,
So that ends up
And if you
stacking
lose
on
that,
90
they
almost
could
to
lose
make
that
that
tree, and then
turn,
you
right?
lose these parking spaces. Now they may have to put
That's not cool.
parallel there or something.
Okay.
For the commission's information, That driveway was originally constructed as part of the original, I believe it was a Shell station that was there. And then, of course, when TxDOT acquired the right-of-way necessary to widen Highway 90, the lanes moved closer to where the driveway location was. Staff will be working with the applicant to ensure that we have a safe access point at that location.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that is part of the nature of this too, is there was right-of-way acquisition along 90 and Texas Parkway, and so
Right.
it slowly kind of carved that down.
Hi, sir, how are you? Will
Hi,
you state your name?
Yes, Craig Garcia with Gage Design. I'm an architect here to assist Mr. Mayo with the development of the site. We've been working with staff on trying to get the property developed for, it's just 2,600 square foot building, so it's not a large building. We actually have one additional parking space than what's required by your ordinance. All the landscape issues, we have no problems with that. And we tried to rush this in to get you guys on this meeting, or else all those issues would have been addressed prior to the submittal. The only challenge that I see is the staff's request for the 50-foot radius, and there's just not enough linear footage along Orchard to get two 50-foot radii on those driveways. So we'll work with staff to get the largest. I believe Scott was trying to try and get at least the largest radius on the driveway, whichever drive is closest to 90. So we'll work with staff and whatever we need to do to get that drive. There's a tree there that we would have to replace most likely if we bring that driveway further to the south on Orchard, but I'm sure Mr. Mayo is willing to do that, just get the site developed.
we can't share, can we share across the,
There's no cross-access. The other property was developed without expectation of this property being developed, so parking lots don't lead to this property. There's grass in the way.
Right. She has a curb and
but you
then
can
grass.
remove grass,
Well, while you can remove grass, it's not Mr. Mayo's property.
Okay.
It's Dr. Slaughter's property. And they have their building.
Okay,
We don't have a hold on them now.
all right.
And honestly, it would be close to that building if they put a cross-access.
Yeah,
in
it's
it.
all
It'd
just
be-
really tight.
yeah.
Okay.
Correct, and we'll pull that drive as far to the south as we
Yeah.
can get it with the largest radius.
Okay.
Isn't that
Mr.
a pretty
Garcia,
big-
where would you put the diamond or the planting area, and would that affect the number of parking spaces that you'd be left with?
No, sir, there's a lot of opportunity there. We actually have one diamond shown in the existing lots, the existing spaces to the south. There's two spaces or three spaces just to the northwest of the building, and there's probably 10 or 15 foot of open area in that location. So there's plenty of space to put another diamond in there. And same with the trees. We have no issues with adding the trees. And this was a read on the ordinance to get the trees close to what the quantity and the shrub quantity per the ordinance. We have no issues with continuous shrubs through here, and
I think they're fine, yeah.
no issues.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay.
Does anyone else have any other questions of this gentleman? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You're welcome.
As this is a public hearing, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to this project?
I would also like to say that we did get 2 letters of support.
Oh, good.
One from Commissioner Prestige,
Okay,
and one from the Heaven on Earth group that you all met with not too long ago
Oh,
as well.
yeah.
okay.
So there's some support for this definitely in the area.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing?
Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Opposed, none. Public hearing is closed.
Make
May I-
a motion, we submit this to city council with a positive recommendation according to staff's recommendations.
Second.
I guess I will also add that with the flexibility to address
The side.
the site layout issues.
With the
that-
driveway.
With the
issue, right?
driveway and.
That's good.
Will you second that, please, Mr.
I'll
Parker?
second his addition.
All righty. All in favor, please. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Good luck with your project. Item 8, zoning text amendments. Security devices in non-residential areas. Zoning text amendment. Number 1, Discuss objectives for possible amendments to the zoning ordinance related to the use of security devices in non-residential areas. And number 2, direct staff to call a public hearing for consideration of a preliminary report.
While Jennifer is putting the pictures up, it appears in various areas of town,
There's no awnings.
security issues are being raised. And while her pictures show what we would consider burglar bars, I have noted at 2 locations on Texas Parkway, full steel shutters are being closed across storefronts at night. And we've had a
There's
complaint.
that one on Lexington too, that former meat market, that's a dentist office now, I guess.
Right. The Chevron or Cartwright, he
No.
pulls them across his.
Well, I'm not talking about those that pull and slide. I mean, these are full steel.
Right.
You see nothing behind them. But we also, you know, the pawn shop that just recently opened out on Highway 6 has these, and we would like to, we anticipate it may be required, in speaking to the police chief, he told me that the insurance is going to require they have some kind of protection. But maybe we can regulate it in a way that it is not quite as obvious. And we think it detracts from the area. We think it will affect the desirability of an area to stop and get out of the car and shop when you start looking at burglar bars and things like that, and will portray an inaccurate perception or view of Missouri City. So this is just, we want to explore this. My understanding, this actually came from our economic development director. And if he's raising that concern, it's probably something we should explore and look at deeper. So this is, found out about it last Thursday, and we had something else to bring to you, and no, that one gets pushed back, this one moves up. So really, this is a very conceptual discussion.
So
Jennifer outlined it better in her report than I did.
So I would assume that we would do our standard, compare, see what other cities have done or are doing, and whether or not they have the same issues or anything like that.
We will be working our way through that.
I have just one question. Doesn't this change the design ordinance of the buildings? Don't we already have, like this guy with these shutters built here on the outside of that thing or whatever?
Let's assume there's several things have to build from to answer this. But let's assume the building is subject to our architectural standards. If it's subject to our architectural standards, thou shalt not use metal on the outside of the building. So,
On
for
the walls.
walls.
It has to be a component of the wall.
Can you have a metal door?
You can have, you can have metal frames.
But they're not doors.
Yeah. These are, like, the shutters aren't regulated by our architectural standards. If it was a element of the actual wall,
On the inside?
it would have to be integral to the wall for it to be captured within the architectural standards.
Oh. Okay.
I want to argue it's a part of a metal wall. Of course, I'm not a planner, so I don't have a full view of things.
So the way it is now, it's acceptable then, right?
Yeah.
Well,
According to
they don't think
architectural
it's, they
standards?
don't think it's enforceable, is what they're saying.
We may have a hard time making them take it down. But we want to get ahead of this.
But under building restrictions, I think their original question is they're allowed? Or they have to be permitted, or they have to be, I'm just curious.
Under our architectural standards.
Yeah. And some of it, you're looking at the
I
coverage.
think they weren't anticipated.
Yeah, you're looking at coverage too, like we talked about with the
Probably
window
not.
signs and covering of windows. The bars, once it's inside of the space, then
Right.
it's not covered by our architectural standards.
I mean, I think you purposely gave me this for you to give me a headache, because it's like all kind of violations on this paper. So Jennifer, tell me, what do you want us to do?
Well, it's not Jennifer personally.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Staff, are you asking us to direct them?
But,
go
Do some
study.
research.
as
and
staff,
see that.
yeah, staff, we want to explore the impacts of the use, because we want to balance it with the need for protection that businesses, you know.
That's the question is,
Need.
so what's the alternative?
Right.
And what is this already here to prevent?
Right.
Is it to prevent vehicles coming through, people, helicopters, whatever? Or could they put in more of a positive barrier in front of the parking spaces, like some of the other stores here do?
Or could they, is there another way to prevent people from throwing things through the glass?
Is that what this really is for?
I know in one situation, that's not pictured here, that's what drove the installation. A barber shop? Who breaks into a barber shop?
Somebody who doesn't like the barber, I guess.
That's all I can figure.
So I make a motion that we direct staff to prepare a preliminary report
Yeah.
and call a public hearing on this question.
Then go from there.
What do you want to do?
Thank
That's
you,
what we
sir.
wanna do.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, the motion carries.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Do we have any clue what city council's position on this is? Or is it even on their radar yet?
Well, I got the direction from the city manager,
Like it
so
was.
I suspect it is getting some attention, and those along Texas Parkway, I'm sure, have sparked attention of certain council members, and the one out on Highway 6 has probably caught other people's attention, so I suspect council is beginning to notice these.
Okay, great. Gentlemen, we have one last matter. It's going to fall under other matters tonight. It's going to be the subdivision ordinance text amendment. Discuss objectives for possible amendments to requirements for copies and data provided for conceptual plan and plat applications, upon which we will direct staff to call a public hearing for consideration of a preliminary report if we feel that we need one.
This fortunately does not fit in the zoning amendment area, so we don't have to have 3 months of talking about this. Several months back, we discussed the need to have developers submit digital subdivision plats. Make a digital submission as opposed to a paper submission. Looked at the ordinance doesn't say we have to do that. The infrastructure manual requires it, so we've been bootstrapping off that, and quite frankly, most of them would rather submit it digitally than produce paper and bring us a whole bunch of paper. When we first talked about amending the subdivision ordinance, the city manager said we shouldn't write every little administrative rule we have into the body of the ordinance. And as we looked at it, and I looked at other subdivision ordinances in other cities, I found very few that go into the detail we go into on technical matters. Most cities have an administrative technical guide that they use to
Reference.
for their design professionals to reference, so they know what we expect and what we want in our subdivision plats. It gives us a chance to shorten the subdivision ordinance to the critical and important parts and take all the technical information, move it over so that we have more flexibility in that manual to make changes as technology changes and as other matters change and engineering issues change, that we need to address it and we don't have to go through public hearings to make those changes. So that's the concept. I'm also hoping we can sneak in a little bit here and there where if circumstances warrant and there is no, and you can justify a variation or a variance to the requirements, then we should be able to approve that without having to burden people with waiting a long time to get that answer.
I like that. Is there a motion to direct staff to call a public
So
hearing?
moved.
Second?
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. It is adjourned.
Well done.
You do it so
Madam
fast.
Chairman.
I'm sorry.
You're so fast. You got us out of here.
You stay up for my practice? Yeah, I have to practice. No, I do it for a living.
I don't know if I'm
Did
getting,
you remember?
I'm getting my money's worth.
You're not getting your money's worth. You want a
I
raise?
feel like I'm cheated out of a
Give him a raise.
Oh, yes.
minute.